Welcome to today's episode of Words of the Wise. Today I have Chief Pirochta from Brighton PD in Michigan, 23 years total in law enforcement. He's actually been at the Brighton Police Department his entire career. He started as an intern in 2002. He spent 19 years on SWAT, 3 years as an SRO, and 19 years as a department and SWAT instructor. He has a bachelor degree, a graduate from the Michigan Police Corps, a graduate from Michigan State University School of Police Staff and Command, and a graduate from Michigan Association of Chief of Police Executives and New Chief School. He also is on a number of boards. So he's a member of the Governor Task Force, SME subcommittee. And he's also a member of the Governor's Task Force SME Subcommittee for Recruit and In-Service Active Assailant Training Development. I feel like I'm going to need him to explain all of these things to you guys because this is impressive. And then he is also on the Advisory Council member and instructor for Schools Educators Police Liaison Association. And I know in talking to him offline that wellness is something that's a huge priority, and he really focuses not only on wellness, but leadership. And so I'm looking forward to this conversation. Welcome to the show, Chief Pirochta. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you very much, Paige. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to share thoughts and stories with you and answer any questions you may have along the way.
Yeah. And, I want to kind of dive into your background a little bit because I am looking forward to sharing your philosophy on wellness and leadership. I think that was something that really stuck out to me when we talked offline is kind of your perspectives and how you've been able to implement that as well. But give us a little bit of background. So I know I kind of like was bullet pointing and I was like, man, like I just need him to be the one to give his background here. So 2002, you started as an intern, and now 23 years later, you are chief of police. And I'm guessing that I'm correct when I say that a lot of things have happened in between 2002 and today. So can you just kind of give us a little bit of background and why law enforcement and how have those 23 years looked like for you?
If I can start at the beginning, the reason why I wanted to become a police officer is my dad. My dad was in law enforcement for 43 years in a municipality up here in Michigan. He's obviously my rock in my family. And I wanted to do local agency policing, such as like my dad worked for Swartz Creek. Potentially wanted to go there, but because of nepotism, couldn't. So then my next best was the state police. Always wanted to be a state trooper. And unfortunately for me at the same time, the state police canceled the academies, and that launched my career into Ferris State, where I got my bachelor's degree and started here as an intern. Through that, I've had some great opportunities, great leaders along the way, great coworkers along the way that have helped guide and shape and mold my career. And you tag yourself to the people that are doing great things in the organization, and you learn from those and try to continue that mission forward. So you're right. A lot of things have happened in 23 years, some good, some bad. We'll dive into that deeper when we talk about mental health. But as a leader here, throughout my career, it's being able to explain your why. Why are you doing what you're doing, not only for your organization, but for your community, and how do you best serve them? And if you can't answer your why, you probably shouldn't be doing it. If you do answer your why and you can articulate your why, you're probably on the right path. It might need some retooling along the way, but for the most part, with good intentions, you can be successful.
Yeah, I love that. So, and I didn't even know that your dad was in law enforcement. I don't think that you shared that with me offline, but was he your hero growing up?
Well, in my life, yes.
Yeah.
He was the rock. I mean, I'm blessed to have a wonderful mom too, but as a boy, right, you want to follow in your dad's footsteps along the way, and watching how he handled people. And as I became a teenager and could do ride-alongs, I rode along a lot with my dad, right, and kind of seeing how he did the job. And the biggest thing is you always treated people with respect, no matter who they were, what walk of life they came from. At the grassroots of who he was at the core, treat them with respect, period. And I took to that and I'm like, I love how he does that. And that's how I want to mold myself after.
Yeah. And, we talk a lot about good influences and bad influences and learning from the good, but also learning from the bad. But I love that you had an example of what to do. And it wasn't necessarily something not to do. You were like, I want to make sure that I treat people in the same way that I saw my dad. And I think that's really powerful. And I think it's a reminder that I'm sure that he And maybe it's a little bit of a different relationship being like father son, and he wanted to mold you in that way. But I think it's an important reminder that we don't know how we can impact people, and people are looking up to you at all times. And so, yes, we are all human. And yes, there are going to be times where maybe like we're not perfect, but remembering that there are young people who are looking up to you today and they're looking for how to be. And you can be the one to set that example early.
Oh, absolutely. And the big thing too with that is, again, we're all human, right? We're all going to make mistakes, but it's own those mistakes. It's okay to say, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I think that buys you more credit. And it speaks true to your integrity when you can own that when you do make those mistakes, but just don't make them twice, right? Or at least try not to.
Yeah. You said that you should always know your why, especially as leadership, and you should be able to speak to that. What is your why?
My why is how can I make a difference, not only in my officers' lives, but the community that I serve's life, my family's life. Are the things that I'm doing the right things to set those people up for success, right? As a chief, I've learned that, and throughout my career as a sergeant and now chief, how can I best set people up for succession planning and making a difference in their life? So I guess it's a culmination of a lot of things that land on my why. But I think if I had to narrow it down to one specific thing, is am I making a difference? Am I a positive influence in people's lives to set them on a trajectory for their success? Can I fill their cup, right? So they can be successful.
I'm going to ask you this question because I've been thinking a lot about this in my own life and career. And have there been moments for you where you questioned, man, am I actually making the difference that I want to? Like maybe there are times where you feel like you're not making as big of an impact as you would like to. And if you have experienced that, because I've been dealing with that sometimes, where I'm like, man, like sometimes you don't get the feedback, like you're trying so hard, you're doing all these things, and sometimes you don't get the feedback. And so then you question yourself, am I, I'm doing the things for the right reason. I know that I'm putting in the work. I know that, but is it being received in the way that I had hoped, or is it having as big of an impact as I would hope? Have you ever had those moments in your career?
Yes. But then over time, you start looking for the little successes, right?
Yeah.
That add up to the larger success. So kind of my analogy is we want to see instant gratification potentially, right? And yes, absolutely, that decision that we made, and we have those wins, right? Where the decision that we made and the things that we're doing, we get an instant response, right? But depending on the circumstance, I think it's a slow burn.
Hmm.
You might not ever see it, but as long as you stay on that right course and and you can look yourself in the mirror that you did the right things for the right reasons to answer that why, it may be 3, 4, 5 years down the road before you see the impact of that decision or those decisions, right, that led up to that. So I think it's a two-part thing in that, yeah, we get those little instant gratifications, right? That yes, what I did make a difference. But I think if we stay the course and maintain the why, we just don't know when that's going to pop up. That success is going to pop up. Shoot,
Right.
I might even be retired, and all of a sudden, somebody that I impacted and tried to help, or a decision that I made, I come back to the office 5, 10 years from now, and all of a sudden I go, yes, that I can see it now.
Yeah.
If that answers that question.
It does answer that question. And that's kind of where I went with it too. I had to ask myself that question. I had to take a step back and ask myself, one, and you said this a couple times, am I doing the right things for the right reasons? Yes or no? And the answer should hopefully always be yes, right? I am doing the right things for the right reasons. And then the second question I asked myself was, am I willing to self assess and to take feedback? Because there might be some people who tell you the opposite. Like maybe there's people who like don't appreciate you or your hard work, and they're vocal about that. I think we've all experienced that at one point or another. And so then asking ourselves, are we willing to take feedback, and are we willing to self-assess and learn and develop ourselves to be better? But then the third one, and this is I think what you were just saying, is my question to myself was, is the pursuit of helping people worth it? And the answer is yes, every time. And so if we can sit back and say, am I doing the right things for the right reason? Am I willing to take all feedback, good, positive, indifferent, and learn and grow and develop myself? And then or is the pursuit of helping people worth all of it? The answer is yes. And so to your point, stay the course. And so I completely agree with you. And that's exactly, the kind of internal dialogue that I had with myself too.
And I love what you said about self-reflection. Throughout life and throughout our professional careers, I think that's huge. We need to take that step back and look in the mirror going, am what I'm doing, even though I think that decision's, yes, it's the right thing for the right reason, but step back for a moment and reflect and go, does this truly make sense? Right. So I appreciate you bringing that to me and bringing that out, bringing that up and out, is that self-reflection is huge.
Yeah.
I think it helps us be better and we can better serve our people.
Yeah. And I think sometimes it's humbling.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think, and I've talked about this before, but I think that the people you surround yourself with are really important. And the people who are going to hold you accountable, and you have to hold yourself accountable too. And I think that there's been so many times on both sides where someone has maybe said something that called me out a little bit. And, I always say that the caveat to that is listen to the people who genuinely care about you and want you to win. But having those moments of like, oh my gosh, are they right? Am I
Mm-hmm.
being this way? Like, am I not acting the best? Or is there a different way I can do it? But then also taking responsibility and accountability for ourselves. I remember being told one time that they said, Paige, you are the only one that can make you happy. And I was like, first defensive, because I was like, rar, like, but then I sat back and I said, it's true. I mean, obviously it's helpful to have, it's great when other people are supporting you, and we talk about organizational wellness. It's great for the organization to be prioritizing the wellness of their employees and to have the resources. And I know we're going to dive into that, but at the end of the day, it is up to each and every one of us to make ourselves healthier, happier. No one else can do that for us. And there are so many people that I was one of them, like where you just kind of point your fingers out at the world without recognizing, the role that we play as individuals. And so I have found a lot of growth and humility in self-assessment.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. You're right. It does hurt sometimes when people call you and check you on your stuff. Um, and you're right that you hold what people that are truly close to you and have your best intentions in mind, and they call you on that, and that's great. That's a great relationship to have, right? You look at um, command staff structure, the people that should be close to you in that command staff structure, you should be able to have those courageous conversations behind closed doors, right? That's how you deliver the best product as an organization or a command staff to the rank and file. And we've had those conversations in my office is, hey boss, do you really want to be doing that? And they check you you hopefully deliver a better product down the line. So absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah. And I think it's difficult. And again, we go back to like being human, but I don't think any of us, if we can take a look and say, hey, like, do we like working with people who are completely closed off and don't take any feedback at all? And most of us are like, no, like we know who those people are. Like that's really tough to like try to have conversations with people who are not receptive at all. And so how can we not become that person ourselves?
Absolutely. And you're right. Those are difficult ones to work with, but I think that as a leader, you adapt your leadership style to help. How do you communicate, right? Where it doesn't be, it's not off-putting, it's not offensive. And as long as you still operate on that same mindset of why are you having this conversation with this individual, even though they might not like it, it's how you approach it.
Yeah.
And if they truly feel that you're coming from a genuine place of concern and wanting them to be successful and be better, they might be upset with you at the beginning. But again, if it's well intended, right things for right reasons, why am I doing what I'm doing? And it's not from a place of malice or you're not being malicious about it. It's a little bit easier to swallow when you have to have those conversations.
Yeah, and I think you would probably agree with this. It's, you have to be able to understand how people respond and
Mm-hmm.
be able to adapt yourself and the conversations in the way that you're presenting things in a way that someone's going to receive it. Because
Mm-hmm.
if we talk to everyone the exact same way, and everyone receives things in different ways, we're only going to be effective in a small percentage of those conversations. And I kicked myself the other day. I was having a conversation and someone was like, I'm very, very direct. And like, I hope you're okay with the fact that I'm like very, very direct. And I like kind of like shied away and I was like, man, I should have like met him where he was and I should have like spoke his same language. And I think that we would have, been more successful in that conversation. But I think I was like, I'm scared, and I was like, ah. And so I think it's, learning. And I think that has to do with the leadership and self-development is just learning how can you teach things in 100 different ways? How can you present things in ways that people are going to receive it? Because at the end of the day, if you say something to someone and they're not going to receive it, then you're not effective, And so when we think about wellness and training, we have to consider the individual people that we're trying to impact within the room.
Right, absolutely. And I think it boils down to the emotional intelligence side of the leadership role, if you will, right? And to your point, being able to understand um, different personalities and where those people are at in their journey.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that emotional intelligence is a skill that can be taught?
I think so. I mean, I think, we're all made up the way we are, but we all learn and adapt, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I think that emotional intelligence comes, part of the learning process is through our trials and errors, right? Our successes and our failures, what worked, what didn't work, to become more effective communicators with people, right? Well, this approach didn't work this time with individual A. Next time something comes up like that, maybe I'll try solution B,
Mm-hmm.
because obviously A didn't work.
Yeah.
Um, so,
Yeah. And I think that, I find it to be really interesting. So when we were kids, we were okay with being new at something, learning a new skill. We were not as afraid of falling.
mhm.
And then you get older and there's more of maybe this fear of um, embarrassment or sucking at something or being new or being judged by your peers or leadership or whatever it is. And I've had to ask myself, how can I have more of that, like, I don't want to say childish, but I think you understand what I mean by that. That kind of like where I'm totally open and excited to learn new things. And I'm also okay with failing, and I'm okay with tripping and falling. And not that I love it. Like I don't love, when I get done with something and I'm like, man, like I feel like that was a flop, and now I feel all the feelings of maybe being embarrassed or whatever it is. But I always have found that I've learned so much and I've been able to become better at what I do by allowing myself the ability to learn, and I think that if we stay in our comfort zone of, I'm good at this thing and I'm just going to stay in this bubble and just do this thing and I don't want to try anything new and I don't want to trip and fall, then you're never ever going to improve because you're staying in this kind of, island of comfortability. And so I've been trying to implement that with myself of like, how can I be okay, just like I was when I was a kid, to like get on that bike and fall over and then get back on the bike and like still have fun.
Right. I think to your bike analogy, as I've gotten older, when I was a kid, you're right. Zero fear, 100 miles an hour. Um, I was a kid, right? Now that I've gotten older, I don't recover as well physically if I were to fall over. No. But to your point, I would agree with you in that, yes, as we could become adults, maybe we've been burned in our past and it left an emotional scar, right? Or we did something in that carefree mentality as a child. But as we got older, people started picking on us, started making fun of us, laughing, and we didn't like that experience, right? So I think as we get older, we remember those, and it's in our Wayback Machine, if you will, and it kind of closes us off because of previous experiences, right? But I think if we always, as people, as leaders, strive to get better, we have to be open to learning from others. Every training that I go to, and I think every training that somebody's attended of mine, I always tell them, hey, please take what you can and what you like. And if you can implement it somewhere, if it helps fit a need in your department or you personally, please take that and use that. But there might be some things that you don't like, and that's okay. But at least we're all here to learn from each other. And I also say in training classes, if I'm going to learn as hopefully much from you as you do from me,
Yeah.
um, because you might bring something to the table from your walk of life, your organization, et cetera, that I've never heard of, never seen. And I'd be amiss not to capture that and take that with me and go, okay, that could work for me in my organization or my personal life, depending on what the topic is, right? But you're right. It's very difficult as we get older to fight the. I'm at a loss for what the word here, to open up, if you will, and be that. But I think again, going back to what we originally started with, if we're trying to make a difference in people's lives and be the best that we can be for not only our families, our organization, our community that we serve, we need to guard against that and be more open-minded to receiving information and in being the best that we can. We all strive for perfection. I think, in my opinion, I think perfection is very difficult to attain if unattainable. But if we strive for that, hopefully we can land on excellence
Yeah.
and serve our communities excellently, if that makes sense.
I love it. Yeah. And to your point, I never want to give the perception that I'm all knowing
Mm-hmm.
ever, because I'm not.
Agree.
And I love that I'm not, because that means that there's room for growth. And so I love that you present that and you're like, yeah, like I want to learn from you guys too, because I want to keep getting better. One of the things that I've really found to be successful is having outcome based conversations and then working ourselves backwards from that. So, what is the goal? What is the mission? Like, what are we trying to achieve? And then what are the things that we can implement today that are going to help achieve that in the future? And so I can put this in a really simple example, because I do think that in some ways, there's still maybe a little bit of a stigma when it comes to wellness, and, people are uncomfortable with change sometimes, and so that first step is the hardest step. And when we talk about knowing your why, I ask people all the time what their wellness why is. Why is wellness important to them? And everyone has a different answer at different times in their career as to why it's important. For the young guys and girls, usually, and it's not, I don't want to overgeneralize, but usually it's performance, right? They want to prove themselves. Maybe they want to be on the SWAT team one day. And so they're like, man, I just want to like perform at a really high level because, I want the respect of my peers, or I want to promote. For people who are closer to retirement, they're like, I just want to be able to retire and like go on my cruises and go fishing and like run around with my grandkids. Like, that's what I want to do. There are some people who are like, yeah, I just had a family. I want to be here for my kids. So understanding what their why is, I think, is that intrinsic motivator that helps to take action. But when we look at like, what is the goal? What do you want to see in your life? And is the goal that, when you get to the end of your career, that you want to like physically be good and you want to be able to run with your grandkids and you don't want to be in chronic pain? Okay, now we can work backwards. Now we have like an outcome driven conversation with like, this is how I want to be at the end of my career. And then we're like, okay, well, what do we have to do to get there? So we know some of those resources that are going to help with back pain and mobility and working out or nutrition or whatever the thing is that we have to do in order to get there. And I think that helps to get people to take that first step and maybe step into some uncomfortability because that they know that that short-term discomfort is going to lead to long-term gain.
Right. I couldn't agree with you more. And I loved your example. And I actually just learned something from you because I was taking our approach in chunks, right? Um, with the end goal being officers having the ability to retire and be in the best mental health they can be, the best physical health they can be, financial health, et cetera, right? And plugging in those steps along the way to make them successful for that end goal. But I also think there's little mini goals along the way, right? This has kind of been an evolving process for us here at the city of Brighton. Um, in cops, we don't like to reinvent the wheel. So
Mhm.
we stole this idea of what Howell City Police Department was doing with the mental health side of things, right? Called the checkup from the neck up.
Mhm.
What that is for us is, let me back up. When we were young, right, first starting out, 100 miles an hour, bulletproof. That was our mentality, right? And this is where we're learning from our younger generation that are hiring on now. They understand this concept. Us older guys and men and women, it's very difficult for us to deal with the emotional, the mental health side of things because we were those robots. We weren't supposed to feel things. We were supposed to be the stoic professional on the scene. And I still believe that on the scene, absolutely. I mean, that's our job, right? But we'd compartmentalize it, box it up, and put it in a box way back in the back machine, and move on. And yeah, you'd have your conversations with your colleagues, but it never really decompressed you, right? So fast forwarding to present, my mindset has completely changed. And I was affected directly by a call for service where we had a young man, 13 years old, commit suicide near Christmas. And with that, I have two children. I have a 17-year-old now. At the time, I believe he was 10, and my daughter was 5. And that impacted three of us on the scene. That you had seasoned veterans on the call. We all, after the call was done, handled our emotional reaction very differently. I remember going outside, and when I could, I called my wife and checked on my kids. One officer got sick outside. Um, the other officer, he also broke down in tears. I mean, then I saw it right there as a sergeant. I went, "What can we do better?"
Mhm.
Yeah, we have our CISM. We did a critical incident debrief afterwards, but that's incident specific, right? So with the checkup from the neck up program, we meet with a clinical psychologist once a year. It's mandatory. Again, as a chief, I don't care what you talk about. That's between you and the clinician. I go first. I'll take the first step. I will own and be the example of this isn't something to be afraid of.
Mhm.
We are not robots. We are human. We deal with this stuff. And unfortunately, the side effect of not dealing with it and not being able to open up and talk to people, it can create problems at home. Because how do you decompress that with your spouse? How do you decompress that with your kids when they ask you what happened today, Dad? Well, I can't go home and tell my at the time 10-year-old and 5-year-old. Well, this is what happened. This is why Dad's quiet. This is why Dad gets angry, etc. So, in my opinion, I if I'm going off the rails here, I apologize, but I think it's very important. So when you say goal, I think it's to make people emotionally well while they're on the job, because a mentally healthy officer, a physically healthy officer, delivers a better product to the community that we serve, right? So along their journey till retirement, the goal is to keep them mentally fit, physically fit, with the ultimate goal that they're not carrying this baggage, or it can be reduced um, at the end of their career. So to your point, they can go run with their grandkids, they can go on vacations. They're not in a state of depression once they leave here and have an unfortunate outcome when an officer involves suicide. Um, we don't want that, right? So how can we set these people up throughout their career for success with the ultimate goal at the end being mentally healthy, physically healthy, financially healthy, etc.
Yeah.
Sorry if I was all over the map on that, but
No,
a lot of thoughts are spinning through my head.
it was really clear. And I think a lot of the conversations that we can have can be really almost like numbers driven, where it's like, okay, we're going to check this box and we're going to do this because of this and, ROI and money and dollars and all the things. But everything that you just said was we're taking care of the people within the organization. And I think it's a really important reminder, and I think this goes back to like our why, like if we can ask ourselves, why are we focusing on wellness? Why is that such an important topic? And it's the people. And
Mhm.
it has to be that. It has to be that we want these people who are showing up every day to do arguably the hardest job in existence, in my opinion. And we have to make sure that that is the driving motivator, that we are making sure that they are good.
Mhm.
And it does impact everything. It's a ripple effect to your point. It's going to affect how they operate and how they show up within the community. It's going to impact how they show up in their families. But at the end of the day, it's like, how can we just support these humans that deserve to have the support?
Oh, absolutely. Because in the city of Brighton, so when I got promoted to chief, we had a new city manager, city manager Gretchen Gomolka, and our HR director Michelle Whitney. They bought into this program and delivering it. And there's a Sergeant Jim Meldrum. He's taken it to kind of a different level. Empowering people to make those decisions, see where they want it to go. And you're absolutely right. The opportunity has been afforded to us to make this successful. Has been outstanding. The support we've had behind it. I think some guys were reluctant in the beginning
Mm.
because you never know, right? But it's getting the right people. So along with this checkup from the NECA program, it's vetting your clinicians to make sure they're either a retired law enforcement that moved on to that profession. They've worked with other organizations and agencies, so they understand what we deal with, from police, fire, EMS, et cetera. I think that's very important, but I think it's also, you're right, to it's about the people. It goes back to that right things, right reasons, because you want to deliver the best quality product to the people you serve. And that's us. That's our officers. That's my men and women with boots on the ground, answering calls for service, interacting with our community. And if we don't take care of them, how are they supposed to take care of the people that we're supposed to take care of?
Yeah.
So I think it's huge that we take care of our people and make sure they're set up for success, again, to deliver that best quality product to the people we serve.
I always find it really sad, and I've had endless conversations about this where there are leaders who really care about the wellness of their people, but their bosses are not on board. And it's really difficult, and I'm having these conversations where they're like, man, like we have to convince them that it's a have to have and not a nice to have. And, they want to know the dollars and they want to know the numbers and the metrics and all these things. And, obviously there are things that are important. You want to make sure that the things you're implementing are helping people and they're effective. But I don't know how we can have a conversation like this and anyone can walk away and say, oh, it's just a nice to have.
Right. And to me, the dollars and cents, yes, we all have budgets, right?
Mm.
But it's interesting we're having this conversation. We just had myself and our HR director just had a meeting with our Michigan Municipal League, right, who represents our workers' comp claims, et cetera. And we sat down and talked to the representative. And the one big push that they're seeing is mental health claims, right? And with that, they asked what we were doing, and I explained to them the checkup from the NECA program. So I think if you did a deeper dive into the cost benefit analysis, right, to have an officer out on a mental disability because they were impacted by something and we didn't have these resources for them and they're off work. Now you're backfilling with overtime. If it's work related, right, they potentially could be set up for workers' compensation claim, et cetera. And that goes against your insurance premiums. And now here you are, your insurance premiums go up. You're paying overtime for the officer to cover the backfill the shifts. I think it's for what we have. I mean, at roughly ballparking without pulling up our budget, we're a small organization, 19 from myself down. and everybody goes. So I say 19 sworn, but we also have two civilian employees that go because they download our videos, they see our pictures, they read our reports. So I think it's important they get the same opportunities as sworn men and women. It's roughly right around $13,000 a year. And, through Frontline, the company and organization that we use, the city's been generous enough that not only do they afford the initial mandatory visit once a year, they will fund two additional visits above and beyond the initial, and then it coincides with our insurance. So that way, if an officer finds success, and it doesn't even have to be, it could be a simple conversation that it starts off police related, but it dives into maybe the officer's having a problem at home, a marital issue or something. It covers their family as well. So they can bring their families into this and have an issue completely unrelated to police, but it gave them the platform and opportunity to sit down with somebody and get it off their chest. So
Yeah.
it, I think it's been successful.
Yeah. And I know I feel like we could talk for another hour, but I know we're kind of running low on time. And so anything else that you want to add? I know that you guys are taking a holistic approach and you've talked about some of those other things earlier. You said financially well, physically well, mentally well. And when you and I talked offline, you're like, it's the full picture of what wellness looks like. And so anything else that you want to add? I know that you also, kind of look at other industries to try to figure out like what they're doing really well and how you can kind of adapt things within your organization. So I'm going to kind of let you take the floor to share anything else that has been successful for you guys.
Well, again, we're still building it's like basically an internal EAP program, right? And most organizations have an employee assistance program. You dial a number, it puts you in contact with various people, but you don't know those people. So we have the checkup from the neck up for the mental side. We have a departmental peer-to-peer team, SISM team, et cetera. But now you talk about physical fitness, right? So it's leveraging your local resources of people you can vet them. So like we just implemented we have an in-house gym, right? Officers have the ability to use it before and after their shift. It's reaching out to those local, maybe CrossFit. You have a whole bunch of different ways people like to work out, right? You have CrossFit people, you have people that just want to do X, Y, or Z. It's finding those resources and having workout programs built for that can be posted on the back wall, right? Reaching out to our local hospitals that have dietitians that maybe can do some nutrition planning for you and give you some information, give you their contact information. So if somebody's saying, hey, I want to do X, Y, and Z, or I was just diagnosed with, gosh forbid, diabetes and I need to be a healthier eater. Hey, call this person. We know who they are. They're local. So you're not having to drive all over. It's not somebody you're talking to in a different state, et cetera, that can assist you. Same thing with financially well, right? The city does offer some great programs, but it's also going around to different financial planning organizations in vetting local people that your officers can go seek financial assistance, financial planning. Same thing with never thought of this when I was young and just started here, right? A will or a trust or both. Getting local attorneys who are well versed in that and giving them a local resource. So basically kind of covering all the things that you potentially could come across. And instead of calling a 1-800 number and talking to somebody from some other state or some other city, it's people here in the city of Brighton proper that our officers can use. We've vetted them. It's a one-stop shop. Like, hey, Chief, hey, Sarge, or hey, Director Miller, or I'm sorry, Director Whitney. I'm having a problem in this. Well, here's your local resource. They're just down the street. Here's their phone number. They know that they might be getting these phone calls to assist you.
Yeah.
I think it, and plus they're people that we trust, right? So I think you get buy-in by approaching it that way versus picking up the phone and just dialing a general 1-800 number. So that's what we're trying to do here in our organization. And again, I say it's not perfect. It's a slow burn process, if you will, in making sure we have the right people in place. So when our officers need something, they can call. But we're working on it, right? We'll get there eventually.
I love it. I really love that because we have a lot. I think people don't realize that most agencies are smaller agencies and it's harder sometimes to get resources. And for you to say, hey, we did the legwork we reached out to local partners who we trust, who we vetted out, so that there's no question as to where to go. And now it's a partnership. And so now it's up to that individual if they need those resources to ask, but you guys have something in place that you can point them to.
Absolutely. And I think to your point of what's the goal, right?
Mm.
The goal with this is if this is something that works out for us here as a test pilot or a test program, if you will, for the PD side of the fence, if this is something that can grow legs and migrate over to our Department of Public Works, right? Our wastewater department, basically be a citywide of locally vetted people for the various categories that you might need assistance in or looking for guidance in. We're willing to share. I mean, take our information and use it. It's not just PD specific. So it's not only helping our people, it's helping city staff as a whole to be better.
Yeah. I was just having a conversation earlier today, and there was a chief that said the younger generation is more receptive to these things, and they're, coming and they're asking for help, and they're prioritizing their wellness, and they're more open to these things. And my response was that, yes, they are more open to these things because of you guys. You guys are the ones that are having these conversations. You guys are the ones that are exposing them to these resources early and really showcasing the importance of proactive preventative efforts. And so I think a lot of credit goes to current leadership, because you guys are the ones that are showing them that it's important, and therefore they're more receptive and open to doing those things. And so my last question for you is for that younger generation. What words of wisdom would you share with them that maybe you wish you would have known earlier, or something that's helped you that you want to pass along to them?
Words of wisdom. I would say it's okay to not be okay, right? Again, we need to be emotionally strong when we're handling our calls for service. Be that stoic professional, handle the situation that we're dealing with at the time. But at the end of the day, it's okay to reach out and say, "Hey, this bothered me. I wouldn't have told you that 23 years ago, 22 years ago, when I was young." Right? It's not viewed as weak. You look at our profession as a whole. We are people as well, right? And you'll be okay. But it's having those people to lean on to help talk you through. Again, completely 180-degree pivot from where I was 22, 23 years ago. You just kept your mouth shut. You did what you were told. You handled your stuff and you kept it all inside. It doesn't make you weak to say, "Hey, that bothered me," and be able to talk to somebody. I think it will make you better. It might not answer the why that happened, but at least you can decompress and get it off your chest, so you can go be a better dad, a better husband, a better wife, a better mom, deliver a better product to the people that you serve, because you release the pressure valve, if you will.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so
Welcome.
much for coming on with me today. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, it's my pleasure, and thank you for the opportunity, and hopefully, again, staying true. I hope I listen to your podcast now. I learn a whole bunch of information from various leadership across the country that you've had on your show. I hope take what you can from me. If you can use it, please do. If there's something you didn't like I said, please just push that off to the side. Take the good, right? And we all can help each other be better.
I love it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.